Have you ever walked into a room or a conversation and felt like something invisible was moving beneath the surface? As if people were speaking the same language, but living in entirely different realities? It's subtle. A flicker in the eyes, a hesitation in the voice, a sense that something has changed, but no one knows how to talk about it. It's not about politics or technology or even culture. It's about perception, about how people are no longer just seeing the world differently, but living in separate versions of it. This isn't science fiction. It's happening now, quietly, relentlessly. And the question is no longer when will it come, but which world are you aligning with? There's a split occurring not in geography or genetics, but in frequency, in inner awareness. Some call it awakening. Others feel it as disorientation, as if the floor beneath their beliefs is dissolving. It's not a war of information. It's a war of attention. Two people can stand under the same sky, breathe the same air, and yet one is immersed in illusion while the other begins to remember something ancient, something real, something that has no name but feels more familiar than anything we've ever been taught. This isn't about being smarter or more spiritual. It's not about belonging to a movement. It's about tuning into a signal that's always been there, hidden behind the noise. A signal that says something deeper is happening here, a quiet revolution of being. And for those who can feel it, life is beginning to unravel, not as chaos, but as clarity. You may have noticed it too, people clinging harder than ever to routines, identities, opinions, even pain. Not because it brings peace, but because it feels safe, predictable, structured. But beneath that structure, there's a growing emptiness, a hunger, one that can't be filled by consumption or distraction. Meanwhile, others are waking up in the middle of the night with tears they can't explain, having dreams that feel more real than waking life, losing interest in things that once defined them. These aren't coincidences. They're symptoms of the divide. This is the silent split, a divergence between those who are beginning to remember who they truly are and those still convinced that the mirror shows the whole picture. One path leads inward toward presence, discernment, and disillusionment. The other path loops endlessly through noise, novelty, and numbness. And the deeper this split becomes, the more invisible it is to the unawakened eye. Some have started to notice a growing sense of isolation, not just socially, but spiritually, as if the people around them no longer hear the same music. But this is not abandonment. It's alignment. As one world begins to rise in resonance, another begins to collapse under its own weight. Systems built on deception are beginning to show their cracks. Institutions once revered now feel hollow. Truth sounds like rebellion, and silence feels louder than words. But let me be clear, this isn't about rejecting the world. It's about seeing through it. It's about choosing to remember what we've forgotten, what's been buried beneath conditioning and comfort. The ones waking up are not chosen. They are responsive, sensitive, not in weakness, but in perception. They feel the falseness, the performative nature of modern life. They are no longer willing to pretend, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. The real shift is not external. It's vibrational, and it's pulling people into vastly different timelines of thought, action, and being. While one side seeks more stimulation, more validation, more control, the other side is letting go, surrendering ego, releasing attachments, not to escape the world, but to remember their place in it. But beware of the mimicry, the false light, the illusions that imitate awakening but preserve the old paradigms. These are ideas dressed as liberation that never challenge the deeper lies, movements that promise freedom but operate on control, teachings that offer transcendence while feeding the ego. You'll know them because they never invite collapse. Real awakening is a dismantling, It strips you bare. It burns, but only because it's making space for what's true. The most dangerous force isn't ignorance, it's inversion. When lies are praised and truth is punished, when mediocrity is crowned and wisdom is laughed at, that's when you know the shift has reached critical mass. And you can feel it everywhere in headlines that defy logic, in conversations that go nowhere, in systems that devour the very people they claim to protect. It feels like madness, but it's not. It's exposure. The veil is lifting not for everyone at once, but for those who are ready to see. And then there are the children. Have you noticed them? They don't fit. They don't obey. They speak truths they shouldn't know and ask questions that cut through the noise. They're often misunderstood, diagnosed, and subdued, but they are not broken. They are bridges, born with memory intact, carrying frequencies older than time. They didn't come to conform. They came to anchor something new. We are not moving toward destruction. We're passing through revelation. What looks like collapse is actually clarity. The old world is not ending because it failed. It's ending because it no longer serves where we're going. And just as some descend deeper into illusion, others are being born into remembrance. But even in remembrance, there's a choice. This split is not predetermined. It's lived. In every thought, every act, every moment of stillness or surrender. You don't choose your path once you choose it daily. And with every choice, your reality aligns. Two worlds are forming, not in space, but in resonance. One built on fear, control, and simulation. The other on presence, sovereignty, and trust. And both exist now, not in some distant future. You're walking one already, whether you see it or not. And here's the most difficult part. People you love may be on the other path. Not because they're bad or blind, but because their soul isn't ready to remember. And your job is not to drag them into awareness. It's to embody your own. To live so fully in your truth that you become a lighthouse, not a savior, not a teacher, but a presence that reminds others of what they forgot. You'll be misunderstood, maybe even mocked. But that's the price of seeing clearly in a world addicted to distortion. Stay grounded, stay kind, and know that others feel what you feel, even if they haven't found the words for it yet. Because the greatest lie ever sold was that you are alone in your seeing. But you're not. You never were. The awakened are not a group. They are a frequency, a network of memory, intention, and quiet courage. And when you vibrate at that frequency, you begin to find them not in crowds, but in whispers, in gestures, in the spaces between words. So now the real question isn't what's happening, but who are you becoming as it unfolds? This moment matters, not because it's loud, but because it's real, because it's the threshold, the place between forgetting and remembering, between clinging and surrender, between two earths that are already forming beneath your feet. And if you felt it, if these words stirred something quiet but ancient inside you, then you already know. The shift is not coming. It's here. The door is not closing. It's opening. And whether you walk through it is not a matter of belief. It's a matter of frequency. Let this be your signal. Not to fear, but to focus. Not to run, but to return to who you were before the world told you what to be. If this message resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more perspectives like this, and join the conversation beyond the screen where real connection lives. This isn't the end. It's the beginning, and your path is waiting. But now that the threshold has been revealed, and you've stepped even slightly into the space between the old and the new, you'll begin to notice the gravity of your own attention. What you look at, you amplify. What you speak, you energize. What you believe, you invite. And so the world begins to organize itself around your inner state, not as a metaphor, but as a living mirror. This is the first law of the new reality. The outer reflects the inner, but not immediately, not always kindly. The lag between thought and consequence still lingers, like an echo from the old world. And this delay is what tests you, not to punish you, but to anchor you to see if your alignment is rooted in clarity or just convenience. In the collapsing world, people still mistake urgency for importance. They chase what is loud. They chase what is trending. But awakening teaches you to slow down, to retreat from the addictive rush of validation, to pause, and in that stillness to notice the subtle, because it is in the subtle that truth hides. Not in the headlines, not in the noise, but in the sacred silence beneath your assumptions. There, the real transformation begins. Not because the world has changed, but because your interpretation has. And once you begin to see through the patterns that once bound you, everything starts to feel less permanent, less fixed, and strangely more alive. You start noticing synchronicities, numbers that repeat, strangers who echo your thoughts, dreams that bleed into waking life. You brush them off at first. Coincidences, you tell yourself. But deep down, you know something is recalibrating. Reality is becoming less mechanical, more responsive. It's not just that you're waking up, it's that life is waking up with you. You're entering a dialogue with the unseen, a relationship with reality itself. And in this relationship, there are no shortcuts, no formulas, just resonance. You attract not what you want, but what you are. And so the real work becomes becoming the frequency of what you seek. And here's where it gets harder before it gets clearer. As your frequency rises, your tolerance drops. You can no longer fake laughter. You can no longer sit in rooms where truth is avoided. You can no longer digest shallow conversations, performative friendships, or spiritual entertainment. Everything that felt normal before now feels heavy, draining. You begin to grieve not just relationships or roles, but the version of you that tolerated less than alignment. And that grief is sacred. It's not regression, it's release. In this release, something deeper emerges, a memory, not of a past life or a forgotten moment, but of your true essence, a sense of being that isn't tied to achievement, status, or story. And the more you dwell in that essence, the more immune you become to the illusions of the old world. You stop reacting not because you don't care, but because you've stopped participating in the theater. You become the observer, not distant or passive, but anchored, awake. But even in this awareness, you'll be tempted to return to what's familiar, even if it's false. Because the ego doesn't fear pain, it fears disappearance. And awakening is, in many ways, an ego death, a slow erosion of the identity you spent years constructing. And so, when you feel the urge to go back, to perform, to please, to prove, pause, ask yourself, who am I doing this for? And if the answer isn't your soul, it's probably a ghost. Because make no mistake, the old world is built on ghosts, projections, expectations, inherited fears. People living out scripts they never chose, fulfilling roles they secretly resent, seeking love in the same places that once abandoned them. This is the collective sleepwalking. And as you awaken, you begin to see it, not with judgment, but with compassion, because you were there once too. You wore the masks. You chased the noise. You believed the lies. And now that you've begun to see, your role isn't to shame those still sleeping, but to embody what remembering looks like. Embodiment is the next stage of awakening. It's not enough to see. You must become. You must integrate the truth into your actions, your choices, your presence. The new world isn't built by thinkers. It's built by feelers, builders, beings who don't just talk about light, they live it. quietly, powerfully, without needing to be seen. And yet, paradoxically, by living in this way, you are seen by those who are ready, not through performance, but through presence. People feel your calm, your clarity, your groundedness. And without realizing it, they begin to adjust to your frequency, not because you convinced them, but because you reminded them of what truth feels like in a world of counterfeit connections. But don't expect applause. The higher you rise in awareness, the more invisible you become to the masses. Because in the noise of the old world, clarity is threatening, simplicity is radical, stillness is rebellious. And the most revolutionary act you can commit is to be fully present here, now unapologetically awake. And yet, this presence will cost you. It will cost you distractions. It will cost you illusions. It may even cost you relationships. But what you gain is beyond words. You gain yourself, not the idea of yourself, but the essence. The unshakable knowing that you are not your story, not your struggle, not your survival. You are the witness, the awareness, the space in which all experience arises. And from this space, a new kind of power emerges, not power over others, but power over perception, over response, over your own state of being. And when you master your state, you become ungovernable, not in rebellion, but in self-sovereignty. You are no longer baited by narratives, no longer hijacked by fear. You move through the world with a quiet certainty that cannot be taught, only remembered. And that memory, that knowing, is the foundation of the new earth. Not a utopia, not a fantasy, but a reality where presence is currency, truth is compass, and alignment is law. And those who inhabit this earth will not be the loudest. They will not be the most celebrated, but they will be the most rooted, the most luminous, the most free. Because freedom isn't escape, it's embodiment. It's the choice to remain awake in a world that profits from your sleep. To choose love, not as emotion, but as awareness. To forgive, not to condone, but to release. To serve, not from obligation, but from overflow. This is the revolution, not in politics, not in protests, but in presence, in perception, in being. And as you begin to live this way, you'll notice something strange. The world begins to bend, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle alignments. The right people appear. The right opportunities emerge. Not because you chase them, but because you became the frequency that attracts them. You stop striving. You start allowing. And in that allowing, you find that life was never against you. It was simply responding to your signal. And so now, with everything you've begun to see, the question isn't how do I change the world? The question is how I remain true in a world that's always changing. The answer is not external. It's internal. It always has been. The shift is not about fixing the illusion. It's about transcending it, not by escaping it, but by seeing through it, living within it with such clarity that your very being becomes a transmission of what's possible, not perfect, but present, not invulnerable, but awake. Because the awakened ones are not immune to pain. They are intimate with it. They have sat with their shadows. They have faced their mirrors. They have stopped running. And in doing so, they've become whole not by removing darkness, but by embracing it, loving it, integrating it. And from that wholeness, they lead not with force, but with frequency. You are not here to fix the system. You are here to outgrow it, not through rebellion, but through evolution, through presence, through remembrance. The new world is not a place. It is a state of being, and it is available now. So the final question is not what's next, but what am I aligning with now? In this moment, in this breath, are you feeding the fear or fueling the awakening? Are you reacting to the noise or responding from clarity? Are you repeating the old story or embodying a new one? Because in every moment you choose, not with your words, but with your energy, with your frequency, with your attention. This is the real revolution. Quiet, invisible, inevitable. The silent divide is no longer coming. It is here.